Yes.
Give me just a moment. Oh, great.
It's fine.
Hello everyone, I'm Andreas Refutation, and the claim I will be responding to is that pre-workout supplements have a negative effect on us. Okay, well the secondary claims on the speaker used was that 1, these supplements are not FDA approved, 2, they contain high amounts of caffeine with related side effects, and 3, that they contain deadly substances. Well, first of all 3 of them sound very, dangerous, which they are, but this is what I'm gonna try to talk about. It's not exactly the drug's fault, the pre-workout supplements, but maybe someone else. So that's what I'm gonna try to improve it. So his first claim was that these supplements are not FDA approved, and one of his major evidence was a quote by Tricia Walter, a student from Iowa Medical, stated that these supplements are not tested to ensure how much of the substances in the label are not contaminated with any substances that are not on the label. What his first claim was that these are not FDA approved. But first of all, the FDA, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. Well, what is their role? Well, my evidence against that was that in October 1994, the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act, DSHEA, was signed into law by President Clinton. Before this time, dietary supplements were subject to the same regulatory requirements as were other foods. This new law, which amended the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, created a new regulatory framework for the safety and labeling of dietary supplements. So under this new DSHEA law, a firm is responsible for determining that the dietary supplements it manufactures or distributes are safe, and that they represent and that any representations or claims made about them are substantiated by adequate evidence to show that they are not false or misleading. So this basically means that the FDA does not have to test these drugs. They don't have to approve them because that's not really their job. So by the passing of this DSHEA law, this requires the manufacturers to basically take up that role of testing their drugs, of making sure that whatever they put on that label, it has to be in the actual substance. Also, another evidence, again by the FDA, is that manufacturers need to register themselves pursuant to the Bioterrorism Act with the FDA before producing or selling supplements. In June of 2007, FDA published comprehensive regulations for current good manufacturing practices for those who manufacture, package, or hold dietary supplement products. These regulations focus on practices that ensure the identity, purity, quality, strength, and composition of dietary supplements. So, for his claim, it was, yeah, you're right. It's true that the FDA, doesn't approve of these. They're not approved. That the supplements are not approved by the FDA. But again, that's not their job. So his second claim was that these substances contain high amounts of caffeine with related side effects. That's absolutely correct. They do contain a lot of caffeine, but that is the role. I mean, that's the whole purpose for. They did it intentionally. They wanted to put a lot of caffeine in there because it actually, as a study that I found out, it actually helps them to focus more, to prevent fatigue, and that study I'm about to explain really quick. So this was a research done by the company Nutrition and Metabolism. So the overall findings of this investigation indicate that the supplement Assault being one of the most known dietary supplements, or pre-workout supplements, same thing, can significantly improve perceived feelings of energy, focus, and alertness, leading to a significant improvement of multi-directional choice, reaction time, and single-step choice, reaction time with an auditory stimulus. Results also support that the supplement may reduce both feelings of fatigue and actual fatigue, which can result in performance increase in both muscular endurance and reaction time. So yes, it contains a lot of caffeine, but you know that caffeine is actually, it's doing its job. It's keeping them awake, it's keeping them in motion, and it's also in not just the caffeine, but everything else inside those supplements are actually, preventing all these fatigue feelings and giving the desired results. And his third and final claim was that these supplements contain illegal deadly substances, so this it takes me back to my first evidence, which was that the FDA is not required to go and regulate on these companies, and it's actually these companies' duty to inspect their own items before they sell them. Okay, first of all, does anybody remember that candy Lucas? Little Polvo Lucas? Well, it's a Mexican candy that was being made in Mexico, but it was being shipped to the US, sold here and everything. And it was actually found to have lead, then this is what I'm going to show you quick. Greg A. Payne, the Director of District of Columbia Department of Health, stated that Lucas Limon is well known to public health authorities between October 2000 and November 2002. The FDA tested 7 samples of the product. All 7 contained lead levels in excess of current FDA guidance for lead in candy. So, what's my point in stating this whole Lucas thing? Well, one of his evidence was that New York Times reported on February 2nd, 2012, 2 Army soldiers died from heart attacks during their exercise after taking the pre-workout jack. So, this goes to show you that even though it could be safe, it can contain a chemical inside it. We just never know. But it's up to the companies to prevent that, to prevent any illegal substances, any deadly substances to be found in their own product. So, but again, that the FDA does not regulate. They don't regulate, or they don't approve of these things because basically they don't have to. But if something deadly or something like lead or the DMAA that was found in that pre-workout supplement for the army soldiers, if it's something like that is found, then the FDA does step in fact, and regulate these products. And well, to conclude, I don't believe that the pre-workout supplements have a negative effect on us. I would like to state that it's actually the manufacturers that are producing these supplements that are not meeting the guidelines from the FDA. Thank you.
Yeah, overtime again. So that's going to be one of those things that you're going to want to watch when the debates come up. I think that you label the secondary claims clearly. You get started on the first point. I think the first point is an interesting thing because it really cuts both ways. I think you've got a reasonable argument here that says, look, the FDA does have rules in place and the companies are supposed to regulate those things. So the argument here isn't that you should be arguing that the argument isn't that the FDA isn't regulating it. It is that they are regulated. It's just the FDA doesn't do the enforcement. Now, was the advocate's argument that the FDA ought to be doing the enforcement or that there's a lack of enforcement by the companies on their own products? Then if that's the case, then the argument shifts a little bit and your answer here doesn't work very well. So I think what you need to do is come back to this issue of the FDA and point out, look, the FDA sets up the guidelines, the companies are legally required to adhere to those guidelines, and failure to do so means that there's a consequence for them. all of the examples then that the advocate cites would probably fall into these categories. If they had contaminated substances, if they had things in the labels that were not, or they had things in the product that were not in the labels, they could be held responsible legally in the administrative process here. You should also point out, by the way, that there's also a civil legal tort that's provided here, and if companies are putting things in the products that are not safe, they've got responsibility for that. They're going to get their asses sued. That's basically the way it comes down. And so I think there's a stronger argument to be made. This is that we don't need to have the FDA doing all of this. They've set the regulations, and the companies are going to probably adhere to this. And then their examples will probably be less applicable. The other thing that I do think you have a good argument on is, look, whenever there is a problem where there is something suspect, the FDA does step in to do that. And that's when you want to use the example about the candies that you're talking about, because I think that that applies to that particular argument. You need to edit and kind of focus a little bit on what your arguments are. I think you do a nice job talking to the audience and trying to clarify how your arguments work, but you need to speak to us also and look at us while you're doing that. That'll make it a little bit more convincing. I thought that you had some good evidence. And then your argument about caffeine basically comes down to, well, the caffeine's there, it's supposed to be there. This is not an accident that it's there. It has this beneficial effect. Here are the beneficial effects. I do think that you're ignoring a little bit what the advocate's argument was, that people maybe consume this to excessive amounts. But your argument then isn't that, that's not the fault of the company. Once again, it's the dumbass consumer who, you're not using the product the right way. It's like if you put the belt around your neck instead of around your waist, there's going to be a problem. And it's same sort of thing going on here. All right, thank you.